Play a board game, I often wonder how the game itself gives players a sense of choice and agency whilst maintaining a sense of restriction and competitiveness. And it got me wondering about the rule of three in games. And I know the rule of three began in video games like Super Mario Brothers, where you'd start off a level, it'd be really easy, they introduce a cool new technique like jumping on a creature, and then they get you to test that skill out in the middle of the level before throwing everything at you, including the kitchen sink, in the final arc of the level. This three-stage process was something that really intrigued me. And so in this video, we're going to be looking at how board games use the rule of three to create some interesting gameplay experiences. And believe it or not, we are going to be showcasing a lot of games in this video. So buckle your seatbelt. Get ready, because my name is Danny. I'm an Australian modern board gamer from Australia who loves sharing my passion for this hobby with you, my friends, and my family. Come and join me on this journey. Hey Danny, hypothetically, if you were stuck on an island, what three items would you bring? I said three items, not three of your favorite board games. The first game I want to introduce to you is Kaido Duo, which is a re-implementation of the 4-player version of the game. In this version, which is only for 2 players, players are faced with the rule of 3 multiple times. In fact, I think this version of the game has literally made me sell the original copy of the game, because I don't think I'm going to play any other Kaido other than this. Players on their turn are going to be rolling these 3 wooden dice. Each die corresponds to one of the 3 different characters that players are going to control: the artist, the merchant, and the explorer. The explorer is going to move around the outside of this island of Shikoku, and the painter is going to move in the different regions, and each region has different symbols associated with them. And then you've got the merchant, who's going to travel from town to town, drawing gifts from a bag, and then selling them at different little shops for the monetary value that's shown on these little tiny gift tiles. On your turn, you're going to choose one of these dice, and the dice is literally going to tell you how many moves that particular character can take. I choose the paintbrush die, that's going to tell me how many regions that painter can move. You've got the trifactor of choosing between the 3 different dice. You're also looking at the number of exact moves that you'll need to take if you take that die. So if you're trying to land on a temple or a garden space and that die number doesn't match the explorer's position, then you're not going to really want to take that die. So the second choice you're going to think about is the fact that this game has 3 endgame win conditions. If you get 6 of these golden coins from the merchant, you trigger the end of the game. If you get to the 9th level of the temple track, you trigger the end of the game. If you sell your last painting, you trigger the end of the game. And you can see where this is going. You're choosing from one of the 3 dice, which then moves one of your 3 characters, which then pursues you down one of those 3 endgame scoring conditions. And so you're trying to balance not just 2 things, but actually 3 things at the same time. And you're watching how your opponent reacts and responds to what you're doing. Not only that, there are 3 abilities at the top of this board, fighting for which of those abilities you can use for your character. This 3-layered strategy and 3-layered choice and 3 pathways to victory just makes this a really cool example of how the rule of 3 can be implemented. The board game Inage is one that uses this rule of 3 design element very impressively, not to mention these really cool shaped territory tiles, which are essentially 3 hex tiles joined together that really creates this very visually striking landscape. Now, whilst at first glance, this game looks like miniatures on a map, which it actually is, but there's a lot of card play involved and a little bit of social dynamics, which I love in these sorts of games. There are 3 victory conditions that you can kind of vie for. You can satisfy 1, 2, or even 3 on a particular round, and 3 is really hard to actually pull off. You satisfy at least one of those victory conditions, or 2 or 3, you actually announce it out by wearing this crown and say, "Hey everybody, I've reached one of the victory conditions, and this makes everybody aware that you're about to win. And this creates some interesting dynamics because all of a sudden everyone turns against you and is just converging on you and trying anything in their power to stop you, which is a really actually fun way to see out a game, because throughout the game you're going to have multiple people saying, I've got a victory. It's almost like, you know, when you say Uno in the game Uno, when you got one card left, that's kind of like what it is, and everyone's like, quick, play that draw two to make that player draw two cards to stop them from winning. This kind of has that sort of feeling about it too. What's really cool is there's three different types of cards. You've got action cards, which you draft. That could be moving your clans into adjacent territories, or building a sanctuary, or initiating a clash. And the way the draft works is really cool because you get to hold onto your card, and then as more cards get passed around, you can either relinquish that card or take another card that you think, ooh, this is a much better action. As a chieftain in a territory, you get to take the advantage card for that territory, and epic tale cards, which are like instant cards. So not only do you have the three victory conditions, you've got the three different types of cards, and you've got that trifactor of trying to navigate this geography in this game that makes it so powerful. Now, one of my favorite Japanese themed Euros to have come out in the last few years is a game called The White Castle. It's a really tense and tight game where players are literally going to have 9 turns only to try and maximize all the different combos and effects and bonuses that they can churn throughout the game. It creates for a very crunchy, tense, and laid experience. And it also comes with this really cool design element where everything comes in sets of 3. The first element you'll notice in the game is that the game comes with these 3 dice bridges where you place the dice in numerical order from lowest to highest. Players on their turn are going to be drafting a die from one of the 3 bridges by taking it from either the higher end or the lower end. They're going to be then placing that dice somewhere out in the castle, and each castle room has cards associated with them that have these dice colored symbol tokens next to them. And when you place a die there, you get to trigger the effect based on the color of the die that you use. If you place a die of a lower value than the one that's there, you actually have to pay coins. And if you place a die of a higher value than one that's there, you get to actually gain coins. So the numerical value on the die is going to influence how you gain money, which then helps you to trigger the particular action that matches with the color of the die that you've placed, with the card that it's connected to, and then that is going to have a consequential action on other areas and regions of the board. The castle itself is actually in 3 levels. You've got this lower level, the middle level, and this top level. And as your courtiers climb the 3 levels, they're going to be able to gain little bonuses, help you to score points at the end of the game. But each level provides different magnitudes of bonuses that you can get. So on this yellow level, the cards are often divided into 3 sections. And so the bonus you're going to get is going to be a little bit more minimal compared to the middle level of this castle. The middle level of the castle, as you place a die there, it's going to cost you more pips, but the effect is going to be far more gratifying for chaining out all of your effects. The other area that has a rule of 3 is this kind of warrior training zone, where basically if you pay iron, you can kind of build the armor for the warrior. They'll go into the training zone, they'll get you the bonus that's listed on these little arch tiles, and then the number of warriors you have in this zone is going to be a multiplier effect for the end game, depending on where your courtier is on the levels of the castle. You've got 3 rounds. You've got 3 turns per round. In this game, you've got 3 types of workers. You've got the gardener, who will get you points at the end of the game, but if there are dice that have not picked from a particular bridge at the end of the round, the gardener will get you an end of round benefit. You've got the courtiers who scale the building, and then you've got these warriors. So this game really takes this idea of the rule of 3 and weaves it into so many different strategies Aqua is a board game that incorporates this rule of three into each and every puzzle piece. And basically, this game is comprised of lots of hexagons. Each hexagon is divided into 3 sections, and each section has a coral pattern associated with it. The idea of this game is that you're connecting these coral patterns to then attract different species to the coral, and then if you've got enough of those small level species, they'll attract larger species that will cover them up. You're trying to create hexagons. And so when I connect one of these tiles together, if I create a hexagon, I get one of the matching colored small animals that covers it on my player area. And this will give me points at the end of the game, including any surrounding touching coral that creates a section of 4 or more. I've also got these objectives that I guess are public objectives that everyone's vying for, and each objective is connected to one of those small species. So this objective will only apply to the species that's connected to it. So for all the turtles that I have, this scoring objective will trigger. Creates this very interesting spatial puzzle. How do I get these rhombuses to make regions where I can attract small animals, and can I create clusters of those regions to attract the larger animals, which are also made of these different shaped hexagons that are connected together. These kind of follow the rule of 3 too. There's 3 hexagons here. As you build out your reef, you've got this base layer of coral, then you've got your small animals, and then your top tier animals on top. This kind of 3-leveled, in a very vertical and physical sense of the description, is what makes this puzzle spatially interesting, as well as tapping into that sense of progression too. That in the game Wormspan, the market area has 3 face-up dragon cards, 3 face-up cave cards that players can draft and choose from. Alternatively, players can wing it and draw it from the top of the deck. The other thing that comes in threes in Wingspan and Wormspan is the fact that you have these 3 rows on your player board. In Wormspan, you've got the Crimson Cavern, the Golden Grotto, and the Amethyst Abyss. And basically, players are exploring each cavern, and as players explore the cavern, they'll gain bonuses from these cave cards, and then they'll also entice dragons to come into those caves. They then use their explorer to travel through and explore the caverns to then trigger any explore effects that happen as they go through, kind of creating almost 3 little mini engines or 3 chains of bonus actions that players can kind of use over and over again. The idea of having this tri-factor or tri-pathway through a game, or having 3 open choices, not only constrains players to not taking too long on their turn and limiting the scope of what they're contending with, because sometimes a market row of 5, 7, 9, or imagine 11 different cards is probably going to take a player way longer to think through. That 3 card limit means that you really got to make a tough and very definitive choice. Family weight board games like Takeoko often toy with this idea of a rule of 3, stretching plays in 3 different directions at the same time, creating this sense of internal conflict and internal struggle as you try and do everything that you really want to do. And games never really allow you to do everything, and that's just part of game design, giving you that feeling that, oh, you could almost do all the things that you set out to achieve. This game really uses that rule of 3 quite well. You've got the 3 different types of bamboo, with pink being the rarest species of bamboo and the green being the most common species. So that in itself creates some interesting tension points as you contend with the objective cards, which is the primary way of scoring points and triggering the end of the game. Whilst at the beginning of the game, you might decide to influence the layout of the actual garden. So with the 3 objective cards, one of them focuses on the structure of the plots and which particular ones need to be irrigated. You've got 2 other objective cards, which includes ones which focuses on growing the bamboo, and another one that focuses on when the panda eats different types of bamboo. The 3 objective cards provides you with 3 different kind of mini goals to kind of work towards. Everyone is building in this shared garden. Yes, you're collectively building a beautiful garden that will satisfy the emperor, but you're doing it for your own benefit. And you've got these objectives that you're trying to really compete for, but other players are kind of inadvertently thwarting your plans. You've also got 3 different types of improvements. fertilizer to help double the growth of your bamboo, irrigation ponds that help you to reach out in those external sections of the garden which water cannot get to. And you've also got tiles which prevents the panda from consuming bamboo, protecting it in this sacred habitat. I think I avoided this game for a very long time when it got released quite a while back. And ever since holding off and then finally getting a chance to play it and owning it, it's probably now become one of my favorite worker placement games of all time. And it's all down to its ingenious use and twist on worker placement. I think I avoided it mainly because I thought it was just going to be about battling, which there is, but it actually feels a lot more Yui than a lot of other Viking themed games, which I really enjoyed about this one. Now, what's really cool about this is that there are 3 different types of workers, and in the game, basically you have a worker, you're going to place a worker down in an empty spot and pick up another worker from another spot, and then you're going to hold on to that worker on until your next turn. You get to initiate the action of the place where you place the worker, and you get to take the action of the place where you took the worker. And the whole idea of this game is that you're gathering all these resources so that you can go out into the harbor area and pillage all these little ports, and then head further up into the mainland and then raid the outposts, the monasteries and the fortresses to gain all of these cool little goods that you can use to obviously get victory points, of course. The board is kind of divided into 3 sections. You've got this initial port area, which has like your base actions. Then you've got this middle section, which is the harbor section, where you can gain resources and start your initial pillaging and kind of build up your little Viking crew through the use of these cards as you go. And then once you build up your crew, you can sail and head to the very far distant, more richer, wealthier, upper class region and take from them as well. A sense of distance is really apparent in this 3-stage structure, and I like that. It kind of reminds me of like a 3-story arc in a movie where you got the setup, then the big initial complication, and the climax of the story. In addition to that, you have 3 different types of workers. You have these black ones, these gray ones, and these white ones. And what's really interesting about this game is that at the beginning of the game, every player has access to the black workers, and you don't actually own any of these worker pieces. You simply borrow them and hold them for a while. And as you get further and further out into this harbor section, you'll be able to unlock these gray workers. Now, you can only get gray workers if you pillage this part of the board. And you'll see further and further along that to get to the further end of the game, you'll need to access these white workers. And getting the white workers is the only way for you to be able to exploit the usage of the end of the board. Cena 1347 is one of those games that has a really quirky historical theme. It's all about eradicating the Black Plague in Italy. These cool worker placement, worker movement elements in the game as you're moving your little meeple around the city, activating actions, fighting the plague, burning rats, and you are acquiring or quarantining people in your little houses before deploying them onto this really cool circular dial. How this game kind of uses the rule of 3 is all centered around the 3 different types of workers or 3 different types of citizens that you've got to play with, as well as this dial that's kind of split into thirds. As you rescue different citizens, so you might rescue a nun or a builder or a noble, and then you place them into their respective estates. The builders kind of go into the building region, the nobles go in the garden section, and you've got the nuns which are in the church section. And as you move your little marker along one of the 3 different tracks, you actually trigger some of the actions that those citizens are actually residing in. If it's going down the church track, you might be able to build and you might be able to acquire fire tokens. And I love the synergy that this game has in allowing you to decide which of the 3 types of citizens you want to kind of focus on, because it's going to be really hard to be able to focus on all 3. So you're really kind of dabbling on either 1 or 2 and neglecting another. And then which of the 3 tracks are you actually going to move? So every time you get to choose to move, or sometimes you're actually forced to move up one of these tracks, which of these are you going to actually upgrade and maximize throughout your game? The main game board also features the 3 different types of tracks: the fire track, the royal track, and the church track. The fire track you ascend, the more you get rid of those plague cubes throughout the game. You can then get rewarded by getting bonuses along the blue track. If you really want to unlock more workers to give you more options, you're going to ascend the red track or the royal track. And the church track is going to be able to help you, I guess, give you more flexibility on this kind of little circular track that's on your player board. And so you've got to really think, am I going to go really heavy and help eradicate this plague? Or am I going to really focus on developing this circular wheel in front of me to help kind of elevate my strategy? Books of Time, as you guessed it, is a game about building your own chronicles. Players in this game are going to be paying pens or papers in order to take these pages from their player area and craft them and weave them into their 3 books. There's the science book, there's the exploration book, and there's the inventor's book. Each book is basically a deck of different strategies which players can kind of initiate their effects to as they turn each and every single page. So as you add more red pages to the red book, every time you turn the page, you'll be able to garner a new benefit. And when you close the book, you'll be able to garner all of the bonus effects that are listed at the bottom of the pages. And then you'll be able to open the book again and reuse some of those effects and synergies. This game really exemplifies the use of the rule of 3 in board game design. First of all, each player is managing 3 different types of books at the same time. Each book has its own focus and way of kind of working. You've also got these 3 tracks that are associated with the 3 different book types, and players are ascending this track in order to gain bonuses that helps their book to kind of flourish, synergize, and give them the points that they need to win the game. As players are crafting their books, players are trying to create books with particular set icons, either 3 with different icons in the green book, or 4 with different icons, or 4 with different icons plus the exploration icon. You've got the yellow book, which is all about getting the right icons in sequential order, which is all about getting particular symbols and getting that combination. Splendor Duel is a game that taps into this rule of 3 incredibly deeply, even more so than the original base game. First of all, you've got these 3 levered jewelry cards, where basically the bottom level or level 1 cards are easy to get because they cost a lot less, and then the level 2 and level 3 cards cost a lot more, and the combination of jewels that you'll need will be a little bit more complex. What's really cool about this game of Splendor is that any card that you buy, especially the cards that look like this that have gems on the top, can be used to purchase other cards later on. So once you play 2 ruby cards, you'll always have those 2 rubies to help you access and pay for higher tiered cards. This 3-tiered card system is what drives some of the crunchy decisions that occurs in this game. And that 3-tiered system kind of gives you that sense that you are progressing further and deeper and higher into the more difficult and challenging levels of the game. And because both players are kind of vying for the same sort of cards and trying to get the right combo, that creates a cool tension point that you'll need to invest in several level 1 cards if you want to access those level 2 cards. And then to access the level 3 cards, you'll need a combination of level 1 and level 2 to get to those level 3 cards. And in this game, the level 3 cards feature these crown icons. And that brings me to another trifactor. This game includes the use of these scrolls. There are only 3 of them, and because there are 2 players, this game really toys with that sense of being the odd one out or having that odd advantage. You could be the player that has 2 scrolls and the other player might have 1, or you could find yourself in a situation where you have all 3 and I guess denying the power of the bonus scrolls to the other player. This rule of 3 really plays into the tug of war feeling that a lot of these 2-player games have. And so by having the power of the scroll and holding onto it or using the scroll, you're going to be able to get bonuses like getting pearls or getting a choice of a token from the bag. There's a lot of cool advantages to having this, and I think that is a really cool design element. The third trifactor is the fact that this game the end game is triggered by one of 3 different ways, either having 20 points all across your tableau, having 10 crown icons in your tableau, or having 10 points of one particular color. So what did you think of those board games that use this rule of 3? And I think it's always really fascinating to see how game design can really influence how we feel and how much we enjoy a game. And something as simple as 3 options and giving them to players and letting them feel the tightness of those options is something that really makes us come back to a game time and time again. Now, I've had a really enjoyable time going on a deep dive into this topic that kind of sprung into my head one day. And if you really enjoyed the content that I shared with you today, please consider liking and subscribing to my channel. And if you really want to support this channel further and support me further, please head over to my Patreon page and support me over there. Otherwise, if you want looking for some more board game content, there are hundreds of videos on my main board game page. Feel free to explore them out, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. This is Danny signing out. I'll see you again next time. Goodbye.